Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Rich Bialek on the line, and he's CEO over at Global Technology Partners. Rich, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Adam. Thank you.
So I'm excited to get into today's topic. So FinTech in Africa. For anybody that's been listening to this show for a long time, I'm a sucker for adding the word tech to anything. FinTech is old school. There's a lot of other techs coming out, so I'm excited to get into this. But before we do, let's give a little overview on what you're doing over at Global Technology Partners and your vision for the company, please.
Well, very good. Well, Adam, we're an unusual combination. We're a U.S. company. We do payment processing, which means we enable banks and other partners around the world to issue Visa and MasterCard. We focus on prepaid, and we focus on Africa, and that's probably a bit of an unusual link when you think of our headquarters in Tulsa, Oklahoma, serving clients in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, Bamako, Mali, and Lagos, Nigeria.
Man, that's awesome. I love to hear that because I know that there's always another side to the story. So when we talk about banking in general, I mean, there's a lot of people that there's some misconceptions and they don't necessarily always think of it as a product. So with you allowing Visa and MasterCards and prepaid cards and all these to spread to different markets, I mean, it just changes things. So let's just transition right into today's topic, which is FinTech in Africa. So where do you want to begin?
Well, let's go to Kenya, which I think is old news but current news, and we hear a lot about Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and Google Pay, but I think one of the most successful programs in FinTechs is based in Kenya called M-Pesa. And M-Pesa is, I think, a Swahili word for money, and M meaning mobile, and it is a product that has just become ubiquitous in Kenya and through parts of East Africa, and was born out of a relationship with Safaricom, which is a large mobile network operator in Kenya. And you see two really predominant logos with a red background in Kenya. One is Coca-Cola, and the other is the M-Pesa logo. And
wow.
It's just enabled the economy, the citizens there to, in many cases, leapfrog and get involved in a lot of person-to-person transfer, enable small merchants to pay and get paid, all by using your mobile phone. And in many cases, they're just feature phones. They don't have to be smartphones. But that's probably a 10-year-old phenomenon, maybe longer, and just an example of how Africa is as innovative, in some ways leading some of the FinTech opportunities globally.
What do you find interesting that's kind of newer? And the reason I say that is because there's a lot. I mean, you're obviously, because that's your main business, is you're there. So you're seeing new trends, you're seeing what's going on. What do you think is kind of like the new thing or something that just excites you or that's interesting on commerce and what's going on over there?
It's coming across the continent, the kind of a belt. You go from Dakar in Senegal and Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire, Lagos, of course, in Nigeria, and then in Nairobi. And you're seeing really a proliferation, the beginnings of innovators that are looking at microfinance, loans, business-to-business payments, a Stripe-like approaches to acquisition and acquiring. Very much the beginnings. I think what we're seeing in companies like Branch and Wallet, Weblogy, Numeret, just to give you a few names, I can come back to them in a moment, are the beginnings where you're moving away from a financial system where the innovation, or at least the service, was more bank-centric to these partners, program managers and FinTech companies that are really facing up with the customer and finding the right way to connect with I think a very important aggregation of providers, Visa, central banks, local networks, and to provide services to the end consumer. So you're starting to see it happen in those markets. with products that are dealing with small transactions, and these program and FinTech companies are finding ways to aggregate them so there's enough volume to have a meaningful transaction stream and revenue stream.
Wow, that's amazing. I love it. And I mean, what this all comes down to is just innovation. I mean, they're greasing the wheels of finance, bringing everything up to date, and just creating an entire new exchange model in terms of money, and making it easier for people to trade. I mean, I love it. It's exciting. I mean, when I see these things happen, and I like the leapfrog part that you mentioned. And I guess the old analogy that I've always heard used is that, you know, they're not going to start building up our infrastructure of phone lines anytime soon. Why would they do that? They have cell phones, right? So it's the same thing with banking. Right. It's like why they don't have to go backwards on what we're doing, and they can actually kind of leapfrog a lot of what we've done already, and that makes it interesting also for innovation, in my opinion. So what do you how do you see this next level of innovation taking place in Africa from your vantage point in terms of payment systems? Do you see that growing, or do you see some disruptors coming? I mean, what do you think's next?
Really more of constructors rather than disruptors. It's getting the right people to connect. There's a place for the strong global players like Visa and MasterCard. They have an asset that these companies want, and that is access to the Visa, MasterCard acceptance locations globally. They're matching up, and the matchmakers, I think, are a role that these fintechs can play, and that a company like us, GTP, can play. And what I mean by matchmaking is you're putting together those payment networks with the mobile network operators, companies like Orange and Vodafone and MTN, which are big players in Africa. They have millions, tens of millions more of customers, but a very thin transaction stream, topping up the mobile phone, maybe some local bill payment. And in a way, you can call that a closed network, closed in essence, that they don't have the point of sale or e-commerce ubiquity that Visa, MasterCard have. But it's getting them to connect up and port over to have access to the Visa, MasterCard networks that will unlock a lot more transactions, a lot more revenue. And that's really powerful. I think making that happen, however, needs, I think, smart, stable, secure connectors and translators, companies like ours, where we help these fintechs understand what you need to do to connect. You need to be able to address security standards, make sure the transactions are safe. You need to understand how you get the product to the end consumer, and really help traverse that last leg so that these relationships are established and are recurring.
I love it. It's great stuff. So, Rich, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information on global technology partners, or to learn more about FinTech or what's going on in Africa, I mean, what's the best route for them to do that?
Well, for us, we have our website, and just Google global technology partners. It's gtplimited.com. It's a U.S.-based company. I think a lot of good news to follow in terms of fintechs as well. There's I think a strong player out of San Francisco that's been strong in financial technology called FT Partners, led by a fellow named Steve McLaughlin. They've been primarily in U.S. and Europe, but they started to make investments in Africa, and you can search them out. And then, even though it may seem a little tried and true, I would look at the quarterly reports, calls coming out of Visa and MasterCard. We were just mentioned in the February 11th, GTP was in the February 11th earnings call by Visa. And as an example, we're working and partnering up with what's called Visa Innovation, where we're bringing programs like the wallet program and Branch and others on a quick, fast-track basis. So those would be good sources at a very high level. I think GTP, our website, you can Google that. Folks are welcome to check out my LinkedIn profile. And then I would check out FT Partners, Visa, and MasterCard.
Perfect. Well, hey, Rich, it's been awesome having you on the show today, and thanks for giving us that insight on not only what Global Technology Partners is up to, but also what's going on at FinTech in Africa. So always love to have these different vantage points on the show, And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you had a lot of fun listening because we had fun making this for you. If you did, don't subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, don't forget to subscribe to that channel, but also let's continue the conversation. So leave some comments for us on the video. Let us know what's new and interesting that you think's going on in FinTech or otherwise. And Rich, thanks again for coming on the show.